All right, peeps, we are here at Level Up Expo here in my hometown in Las Vegas with Paul Bettner from Wildcard. It's going to be a great conversation, but for anyone at home who does not know who you are, I'd love to kick things off with a quick introduction on yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I'm Paul. I'm the co-founder, together with my wife, and co-CEO of Wildcard Alliance. We also own the company that owns Wildcard Alliance, which is called Playful. I've made games for a long time, as we were just talking about, 30 years, going all the way back to Age of Empires 1. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while, and we're working on a new game now called Wildcard.
And if you don't mind, because we were just talking about it, giving people a bit of your gaming background, because Words with Friends, Halo Wars, Age of Empires is a big favorite of mine. Can you go in a bit more depth on that?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so joined Ensemble Studios as a 19-year-old kid at the end of Age of Empires 1. The only reason they hired me as a 19-year-old kid is because before that, in high school, I'd started my first business creating a BBS, you're not going to even know what that, but a bulletin board system is like pre-internet. It's how we used to play games using modems and stuff. So I created one of those in high school, ended up being the biggest BBS in South Florida, in Miami, where I grew up. And that was its own ridiculous story. But anyway, because of that, some of the folks at Ensemble Studios, and they were just a small studio at the time, they were finishing Age of Empires 1. I applied there like a crazy kid, like what, and they called me back and they were like, yeah, you're the guy who made this and like had this BBS and whatever. I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, you should, come in and talk to us, like whatever. So flew out to Dallas, interviewed, and amazingly they hired this 19-year-old kid, joined that team, and we shipped Age of Empires 1, Rise of Rome, and then we worked on Age 2, which is also my favorite. You were saying earlier.
One of the best games of all time.
That was an amazing experience. Age of Empires 2, Age of Mythology, Age 3, Halo Wars, as you were saying. We actually worked on a Halo MMO that never got shipped. That was an incredible project.
Where's it at now?
Somewhere in Microsoft's archives, because in that process, we also sold the studio to Microsoft, so we became Microsoft's Game Studios, and the stuff I was working on actually ended up becoming Xbox Live. It was originally called Ensemble Studios Online, ESO, and it was a multiplayer thing just for Age of Empires. And that sort of like grew into, if you guys remember, Microsoft had the Zone and whatever. Anyway, okay, enough of that. Left that studio during Halo Wars 2, because at that point my brother had joined, and he was just like, we gotta have our own game studio. We gotta start our own game studio. So he finally talked me into it when the iPhone came out. We left, started an iPhone game studio, which sounds totally obvious now, but like all my Ensemble Studios, like, colleagues thought I was having some sort of midlife crisis, because they're like, this was like in the era of phone games being like solitaire and bowling and like flip phones and shit. It was like terrible. And they were like, why would you want to make phone games? And I'm like, I just think the iPhone is going to be like where gaming is going to go next. So we left, we started an iPhone game studio and created a game called Words with Friends, which made Age of Empires look like a small, Words with Friends ended up having...
Very different games.
Yeah, very different games. I never thought I'd make a word game in my life, but anyway, that game went on to have over 500 million players, and we sold that company to Zynga for $180 million in 2009 or something, and went through the IPO at Zynga and all that kind of crazy stuff. Then after that, left, started another studio, worked on a VR game with Oculus called Lucky's Tale that ended up being in the box and like bundled with the Oculus Rift. So that game was surprisingly popular. And then after that, we worked on Wildcard, which is what we're doing now.
Wow. So at night, so never went to college? Just
No,
dove right into...
I did a little bit of college, but that story I told you about applying to Ensemble, I was in college when that happened, and when they accepted me, I was like, bye college.
So when it comes to describing this game to like a casual player, how would you describe Wildcard then?
Wildcard is, I love this because we're going to talk to Brad later, and he coined the term, he's our lead designer, collectible card action game. And I think that it's a little bit presumptuous of us to be like, we have a new genre with a new acronym, but I actually think that Wildcard is new enough to sort of deserve that, maybe, I don't know. It's up to the players and the gamers to decide, but we created it because it was a game that we wished existed. Like there was nothing out there that was like what we had in our head Wildcard would be, and now that we're playing it, that's how we feel. It's like there's nothing else out there. It probably deserves this new moniker because it's a hybrid, it's a mashup of different genres. So Yeah, we made it because we wanted to play it.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you, because I was thinking about how to describe this game, and how I personally say it is I'm like, it's a 2v2 collectible card action game with MOBA and TCG elements, which in my personal
it's like
opinion,
a mouthful, right?
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but it also is unique in my opinion. We'll get to more like, other competitors in the genre later on in the discussion, but it is definitely a newer genre.
Yeah.
So why dive into like a new genre with this?
When we started this game, and it started in a closet in the office where we were working on Lucky's Tale. So it was a small team that was really passionate to take some of the things we loved about RTS games, try to take that genre forward a little bit, because we feel like RTSs have been through this amazing progression from games like Age of Empires to MOBAs to auto battlers. Like, they've gotten more casual, they've gotten more immediate, more immersive. And we just wanted to take that next step. And we wanted to feel like it had elements of a strategy game, but meshed with an action game. And then we were also all playing Magic the Gathering obsessively. I mean, we're always playing Magic the Gathering obsessively. So we couldn't help ourselves. We're like, and also a card game. Like, this was 7 years ago, okay, when we started this game. If I could go back and slap myself for trying to blend like 4 different genres together, but it's why it's actually taken so long, because it was hard to find the fun and the balance of like, I want to feel like building a deck matters, I want to feel like my cards matter, but I also want to feel like I'm playing an action game, and I also want it to feel strategic like a MOBA, like where I am and what I'm doing on the battlefield matters, and blending all those elements was really hard. During the first couple of years, people would say, well, I love it. I feel like I care about my cards, but I'm like never even looking up from my hand to see what's happening. And then we would like go to the other direction, and people would be like, I'm never even looking at my cards. I'm just controlling my champion the whole time. Yep. And so anyway, but I think we're getting there now. I think we have something that is, like you said, really unique and is starting to work.
And when it comes to more of a, again, casual description of like, you're playing as a champion, you have a deck in front of you, right? You're summoning creatures. Your goal is to take out the enemy goalie and eventually so on and so forth. Can you describe it from that angle people can get a better perspective?
So the core game is you're a champion. You're playing in a dynamic arena surrounded by live spectators and fans, which that's a whole other thing we can get to. But and you're summoning creatures from a deck that you have. So you build that deck in between matches. You decide what summons you're going to put in your deck. You decide not just the summons, but also like the abilities that your champion's going to have, things like that. They're all configured through your deck, because in Wildcard, everything is a card. So you build that, what we call your loadout, bring it into the battle. You're playing on like it almost looks like a sports field, which is the point, actually. We're trying to blend like kind of Pokemon Marvel feeling together with like NFL sports feeling. Like that's what we wanted the universe of Wildcard to feel like. So you're summoning these creatures to battle. They move across the field. They all have their own unique behaviors that you can kind of read about them on the cards, just like a TCG. You use your champion's abilities to support them in battle and kind of move back and forth, just like you would in a MOBA, kind of. And you try to take down the goalie and score the goal.
And you just said live fans and audience.
Yeah.
Can you go into detail on that?
Okay, so one of the things that has defined my own career over the last, I guess, 15 years now, is I've just become obsessed with not just like working on truly great games, like where I got my start with games like Age of Empires, evergreen games that hopefully go on to be played for decades to come. But I also kind of got infected by this when we did the Words of Friends, when we did an iPhone game. I fell in love with this idea of building games on like emerging frontiers in game development, like somewhere where video games are expanding and changing and becoming something new. So when we started working on Wildcard in that closet, and we knew we wanted to make this hybrid of RTS and action and CCG, but also I walked into the closet and I was like, but the thing that I'm really fascinated with right now is this new thing where people are starting to watch people play video games. I say new, it's not new right now, but back then it was kind of new. I remember this article at the time I read that was like talking about how half of all YouTube views were all Minecraft, and my mind was just blown, like half of all YouTube is just Minecraft? Anyway, so I was like, look, the games that are popular on YouTube and Twitch, those teams designed those games before they even knew that Twitch was a thing. Like they didn't get to ask themselves as game designers, what would we make different about this game if we knew that it was going to be played and watched by tens of thousands of people? So I told the Wildcard team, I want us to try to answer that question. And we've been building that as a pillar of like a feature of Wildcard since then is a game that is not just meant to be enjoyed as a competitor, but also as a spectator and a viewer, and kind of a brand new type of streaming and spectating experience.
And so what exactly does that mean then? So can I go watch someone else's match, or can you go into detail on that?
You can attend someone else's match. Like, that's the difference. You know, on platforms like Twitch and YouTube, which I love, and Discord even, I still, when I'm participating as a viewer, I feel kind of invisible. You know, like maybe the streamer will mention me. If I tip them, maybe I get to show up and they'll notice me. But it doesn't really feel like that excitement I get if I go to a live game. Like if I actually attend, you know, I'm in Texas, so Friday Night Lights, right? Like any football game, any kind of sports live experience, it's this incredible feeling of I'm there not just to watch. I'm part of this experience. I'm attending. I'm actually making it more exciting by my presence. And I just wanted to bring that to life in video games. I don't feel like that should be impossible. I don't feel like games shouldn't be able to reach that level of feeling like you're attending. And so in Wildcard, when you attend via a platform that we've been building called Thousands, that is kind of like our version of a streaming platform, you feel like you're there, and it's because you are there. So the people who are tuning in to watch show up in the stands of the arena, and the actions that they take can be seen. So like I don't know if you've seen a Wildcard game recently. When exciting stuff is happening, you can see the fans starting to like jump out of their seats and like throw emojis, and like you know, if it gets really exciting, they'll do the wave, and like the whole arena darkens down, and you just watch them. Like and it really, as a player, it creates a new feeling. And of course, as a viewer, it's really exciting to be a part of, wow, what I just did actually affected the game on stream. I'm there. I feel like I'm there.
Wow, that's actually a really unique feature. I'm curious to see how that actually plays out. Is there like a limit to the capacity, and if there games really popping off?
Yeah, we saw early, and this is just because we've been building this, because we've been working on this platform, we didn't really know how it was going to take shape over time. Like, what's going to be the thing that differentiates this from Twitch? Because if it can't do something new and different, it's not really worth us doing. And what we started to discover was there's this group of people present in any stream that are what I call like the high affinity. Like, these are the people that love the streamer, love the game. They know everything. Like, you know, these people are in your audience. They're your biggest fans, right? We call them the 1,000 most loyal fans of a game, of a streamer, whatever it is. And these people they desire to express themselves. They desire to feel closer to the streamer, closer to the content. And that platform and Wildcard that we're building is all about bringing that to life.
And so how many people can watch a match at once? Is it limited? Is it unlimited?
We're playing with this right now. Like, the platform is called Thousands, and so we're like, maybe that means only 1,000 people can get into a stadium. But what it does mean is that unlike platforms like YouTube and Twitch that are just aiming for just get as many people onto a stream as possible, we want to bring in those most loyal fans. And yeah, I think stadium capacity is limited in Wildcard. Right now it's limited to 1,000 people. Might grow a little bit, but you know, we wanted to get that feeling too, especially for the streamers, of like, if I'm successful in this game, if I'm popular in this game, maybe I can play in the Super Bowl of Wildcard someday, and that's the stadium, that's the venue that seats 10,000 people. You know, like
that's awesome.
That's the kind of stuff we're playing with.
It's cool to like ideate all these different ideas and play on them as well. You mentioned before we even started this how you guys are big on community feedback.
Yeah.
And so what has it been like throughout this development process, kind of just, you know, channeling through the community about certain changes to make or certain, you know, upgrades to make to the game, and so on and so forth? How does that conversation go?
So this is like the most special thing. In fact, just yesterday, we had one of the folks in our community who was just talking about how Wildcard was one of the best communities they've ever experienced. And I took a screenshot of it, sent it to the team, and I was like, this is the most important thing we're doing right now. Because if I go all the way back to Age of Empires, I think the secret sauce at Ensemble Studios, and it's just not me, most people who work there would say the same thing, was what we called playtest-driven development. It was this unique thing where we took a portion of our day, of the time we're supposed to spend working, just playing our own game. Just hearing the feedback and going to that room and being like, okay, this game's pretty good, but tell me what sucks. Tell me what's broken about it. Tell me what you don't like. And these days we get to do that with the people who are going to be playing and streaming the game in the future before the game's even done. Back then, we didn't, I mean, that's like pre-internet, right? Like there was nothing like Discord. I couldn't get together with my community and ask them how they enjoy the game or what they don't like about it. These days we get to do that, and that process, including playing with people like you, is driving the development of the game right now. I think that's the next frontier, honestly. I think that the games that are going to be most popular in the next 5 years are going to be collaborations between developers like us, content creators like you, and the communities that we bring together.
Do you think there's an end to that transparency? Obviously, some of your ideas need to stay whole to what you guys want as a game, you know, from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys stay true to what you had for the game, but like, how do you decide what a community can decide? Like, how far does those things go?
I mean, I don't think there's any like sort of magic trick to that. That has honestly been a thing that me and the other folks that come from Ensemble Studios and other studios that have developed this kind of playtest-driven methodology, we've just taught ourselves how to do that over time, because it is exactly like you said, it's a really tricky balance. Like, you have to hold true to a vision, and you don't want the mob, the group, the masses to yank around the design of the game, because then, you know, you'll never kind of end up finishing it or never end up meeting that original vision. So it's this art of like listening to feedback carefully, and most great game designers would say the same thing. It's about listening to the feedback, looking for patterns, and like filtering that through the vision to be like, well, I hear you're saying this. What I know we're trying to achieve is that. So maybe you think that the answer is this, but it's not about what you think the answer is. It's, let me get to the root of that and see like, why is it you don't like that? Because maybe I can solve that in a way that's coherent with the vision of the game. And that's always what we're trying to do.
You've had a hand in a lot of different games, a big variety of games. And nowadays in the game market, we see a lot of shooters, a lot of arena shooters, a lot of extractions, and a lot of genres, right? Your common genres that are coming out every single year. So why a 2v2 collectible card action game?
There's a part of me that's a little bit jealous of those other teams that are just making the next great extraction shooter, because it's like, it's a formula, and you kind of get to tweak and improve on that formula and try to create the next great version of that. But honestly, I wouldn't trade what we're doing for anything, which is doing the other thing, on the other end of the spectrum, creating something brand new that nobody's ever seen or played before. It's a totally different set of challenges, but for me these days, like, it's kind of what gets me up in the morning. It's what gets our team up in the morning. If you were to look at all the people we surrounded ourselves with, we tell people when they're interviewing, we're like, we're not for everyone, okay? Like, it's kind of a roller coaster ride. Like, developing games at our studio is a little bit crazy because we're trying to push those boundaries of what the game is, what the design is, what our technologies are, all that kind of stuff. But for us, for our specific studio, that's kind of what we're addicted to. So, so we love working on something that has never been seen before.
I like that answer. So in your game, you got champs, you got summons, of course, the creatures, you got deck building, you got goalies. It's a lot going on. So how do you guys make sure to properly balance all of that? Because nowadays, people will always try and find a way to find an OP champ, an OP summon, whatever it is, in every game, right? So how do you possibly balance all those different aspects?
You're gonna have to bleep this out, but we find the assholes in our community, and we and we give them a voice. Like, so we find the people, and this again goes all the way back to Ensemble Studios. We had this guy, I hope he watches this someday. His name was Tim Dean, and he was the biggest a-hole on the team in terms of giving feedback. You knew if you brought him to a playtest, he would find that one thing that, like, horse archers, if you made them in this particular squad and you brought them, that they would just like always dominate and there was no way to counter them. And if he found that thing, he would just, every game, every playtest, he would show up and he would do it until the designers fixed it. Because he's like, I'm just gonna keep doing it. Like, I don't care if you're not gonna listen to my feedback, because I'm just gonna keep using this screw to beat everybody until you fix it. We find those people in our community, and we're like, you need to play more often. We need to hear your feedback. We need you to try to break the game, try to find those OP strategies, those unbalanced points, and exploit them. Because if we don't give you that power and that voice, someone else that isn't even talking to us is gonna do it, and they're gonna find that imbalance. So it really ties to what we were saying earlier. It's all about that playtest-driven development and really like welcoming. We have this saying inside of our studio, candor is a gift. So even when someone's showing up and they're saying, I hate this part of the game, I'm like, that's great. I can use that energy. I can work with that. Like, tell me more about what you hate, because what that kind of means is actually I want to love this game so much, but this thing is getting in the way. So please, and like, that's really valuable. That's a gift to us.
Yeah, that's perfect, because I know there's definitely going to be people, I know people that
Yeah, you know that, right? We all know them.
would exploit those things until they are fixed. And it's a game that, you know, I think it's for the better, that does have things that can be exploited, right, until they're going to be fixed. And so it takes a wider community to find those issues.
You're absolutely right. The combination of factors in Wildcard, it's maybe not quite as hard as balancing Age of Empires, but it's right up there, because we have, you know, dozens and dozens of summons. They all have their own abilities, their own keywords, their own behaviors and AI. And then we have the champions and their talents. And the way those things mix together, we have different battlefield layouts. Like, it's a lot of variables that go into every game. It's a little bit more, I will say, it's a little bit more forgiving than balancing a TCG because it's real time. So like, there's an element of real-time skill in terms of how you play your champion. And so, whereas like a TCG, if you mess up a single card's number, like the whole thing can be out of balance. Our game is a little more forgiving of that, but it still has all the elements of having to balance a strategy game, an action game, and a TCG all at once.
So when it comes to champs in the game, Lily and Gain, both new champs. Can you give me any more details on them?
You're gonna have to wait for Brad to tell you all about them.
Okay,
they are his the thing that he's most excited about right now, because we're working on those champs, and I can't wait for you to.
So the game's name, Wildcard. Can you go into detail about the Wildcard powers in the game?
Yes. So first, I have to tell you another funny story, which is when we named the game, we thought it was a really cool name. We did the search for it. Turns out we can have a game named this, so we went and, you know, copyrighted the name or whatever. And we actually had no idea what a wild card was in the game when we made that decision. We were like, the game's about cards, and it's about summoning creatures or whatever, so this is a good name. And then like, it was like 2 years in where somebody was like, but what actually is a wild card? And we're like, we don't have something in the game called a wild card. And it was the perfect moment, because at that time we were looking for something that would, like, games were kind of repetitive. This is a couple years ago now in development. And they were like, nothing changed over the course of a game. Like, you would sort of like summon a bunch of creatures, they would get killed, and it would almost be like you reset back to the beginning of the game. And we needed something kind of like Ages in Age of Empires that would like make it so that the game would naturally progress over the course, and it would end up with a satisfying conclusion. So we added these control points that were basically power-ups that a player could get over the course of a match that were like permanent buffs. And finally somebody was like, wait, what if those are the wild cards? What if you're fighting over the wild cards because they changed the game? And so now the name makes a lot of sense.
Back then, not so much.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an awesome story. This might be a question for Brad as well later on, but are there any major content drops, tournaments, or reveals that you guys have planned that you can tell me about?
So what I can say is, my wife just walks in the camera. She's like, don't you?
I was told to ask this one, okay?
Yeah, my co-CEO is giving me the eyes from over here. We believe that working with content creators and pro gamers earlier in the process of developing the game than is traditional, is typical, is actually the key to bringing Wildcard to the place we want it to be, where it's just like, hopefully this beloved evergreen game that people are playing for decades. The only way we get there is by doing this almost like co-development process with amazing content creators, with folks from the community. So we're doing that now, and that is going to lead to further announcements, tournaments, other things like you're mentioning that I can't give name to, but they're all about that. They're all about elevating the community and making them our partner in this process of bringing this game to market.
Okay, you didn't give me too much.
I did. That was good.
Very,
I was like,
very broad. So I'm hoping for more soon then. When it comes to playing the game, a few more competitive questions for you.
Yeah.
Who is there a meta champ, or is there a favorite champ for you?
I have a favorite champ, which is Bulgar,
Yes,
because okay, fine, because I look like him, but that's not the real reason. He's straightforward, and I tend to like to play games that are the kind of the most straight. I like to choose strategies that are the most straightforward strategy. I'm not the one that's looking for those edge cases. On the other hand, the game's director, Dan, he is so much on the other end of the spectrum that he takes pride in finding the one strategy that no one's ever found, and then like exploiting that and making that, like, his favorite Magic the Gathering streams are like somebody who's built the most ridiculous deck and it's just like going and playing against people, seeing how it does. So we have all types on the team. My type is the more straightforward, so I go for Bulgar.
Gotcha. So When you get to watch people finally play test your game, how is that for you? What's the reaction?
It is both the best feeling and the most uncomfortable feeling that I ever have in my life. So this actually goes back to Age of Empires. The first time I ever experienced this was in a playtest lab at Microsoft behind a one-way glass. And it took everything I had not to bang on that glass and be like, what are you doing? Can you not see that the button for the thing is right there? Just click the button and that'll do the thing you want. And you just watch people struggle. You watch people like do the wrong thing. And you're just super happy to watch them enjoy the game, but you're also just like really uncomfortable because it's the first time someone's experiencing that in a lot of cases, and they're usually like not getting it, especially when you're not done with the game. And so you're like, you want to reach through the screen and be like, just do the thing. Come on, it's obvious. You just need to summon that creature that way, and then you'll win. But watching that and experiencing that, again, that's how we make the game better. Because when somebody's getting lost and they're not seeing the obvious strat or whatever it is, then that's a place where we can make the game better. So,
bouncing off that, then, like, are you hoping for something in particular when you see someone play for the first time? What's your hope?
So I actually subscribe to the Miyamoto theory of game design. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but apparently, the way he designs games, especially when they get towards the end, like we are now, just sits in a room, doesn't say anything, puts someone in front of the game, and then literally just watches their face. Like, how much are they smiling? How much are they grimacing? As gamers, we can't help it. Like, our faces, we just read whatever is happening. Whatever emotional experience we're having in the game, you can see it on someone's face. And with Wildcard, the emotions I'm looking for are challenge, thrill, joy, connection, communication. Like, I want someone to be leaning in. I want them to be paying close attention to what's going on. I want their heart rate elevated, like, because it's a competitive game. And I want them to feel connected to their teammate as a 2v2 game. So those are the things I'm looking for. Sometimes I can see it on their face. Sometimes I have to ask them afterwards, what were you thinking when you played that part? Or when I saw you go like this, like, what did that mean? What was, but we're getting there. I'm seeing more smiles than not when people play Wildcard.
That's good feedback. When it comes more, these last ones are all gonna be like community questions. I know we've talked about this before, but how long has this game been in development, and how many devs on this project so far?
7 years and probably 100 no, more than that. Gosh, if I count all the vendors, which are amazing. Like these days, game development is much about what we have internal studio as the partners that we work with. It's probably upwards of 150 to 200 people total, amazing developers that have touched this game. Right now, our full-time team's about 30 to 40. But again, we have extended team, vendors and contractors and stuff that add another like 30, 40 people to the team. So it has been a long effort. It probably, honestly, the hardest game, biggest game I've ever worked on. It's got a $50 million budget now. It's closing in on that. And a lot of that's our own money, our own capital that we put into this, really coming off the success of Age of Empires and Words of Friends, took that money and put it into this game. This is for all of us at the studio. We hope that this is the greatest game of our career, and that's a high bar for a lot of these amazing folks that worked on, like you said, everything from Age of Empires to Halo to Smite to, it's just, the list goes on.
And so when it comes to this game as well, the devs behind it, I know we mentioned a lot. You come from so many different games. So does Brad. We're going to speak to on the panel too. What's the dev background? What games do you guys play in the office aside from this one, and what games are you guys all coming from?
Because this studio is kind of obsessed with building games that are on that cutting edge of like somewhere where games are new and there's like new genres and new types of games coming out. We tend to always be playing the latest games that have just come out, and that's what we're always talking about. So we're all talking about Claire right now. We're all talking about Oblivion, just because everybody is, and because those are kind of like the new hotness. And you have this blend across the studio. You have folks that come from Blizzard and BioWare who are very much focused on the lore and the IP and the backstory, like especially the folks that come from Blizzard. Like that's their whole thing. Like when they're building even a competitive game, it has to have that soul in it of character and story and like reason that you care about the world of the game, even though you're just playing on a map that is a competitive game, So we have that, and then we have the other cadre of people who are just obsessed with competitive games, and it's all about the balance, and it's all about, can I reach the absolute maximum skill, or really, does this game have a skill ceiling where I can see myself getting better at it for years and years and years? Because again, we look at Age of Empires and we're like, that is still a game where strats are being discovered decades after we released it. So that's kind of our bar for this game. And Yeah, we have kind of collected those two backgrounds, really. Folks that come from TCGs, RPGs, and RTSs.
Gotcha. And taking it one quick step back on the previous question too,
Yeah.
when you put 6-7 years into a project and a lot of funding and all this time and all this commitment, what are the feelings like as you get closer to release? Is it relief? Is it stress, anxiety,
Oh my gosh,
excitement?
it is the biggest amount of stress because the thing, like, yeah, there's a lot of money in this game and there's a lot of, effort and time that we've put into it. But it's really more that, like, us as developers, and that I feel responsible, and I think we all feel this to each other on the team, we feel responsible to each other to have the effort that we've poured into this game actually turn into something that can be another milestone in our careers, like another thing that we can be so proud of. In my particular case, I have kids now, and they are obsessed with Wildcard. In fact, a lot of the developers on our team are in this situation, so a part of us is making it for them because we're their heroes, and like if Wildcard ends up being the game that all their friends are playing, like that makes me the coolest dad ever or whatever. But as a creator, it's very stressful because our bar is so high, not just because of games we worked on before, but because of how much effort and passion we poured into this game. The way I translate that stress into action is honestly trying to push the date back all the time and be like, can we spend just another month polishing and balancing or whatever? Because really it's that last year where the true magic happens. It was like that for every Age of Empires game. We thought we were done. We had our schedule saying we were done a year before it actually released. And we looked at ourselves and we're like, it's good, but is it the game that if we weren't the developers of it and you just had that game in my Steam library, that's what I'd be choosing to play at night? And every Age of Empires game went through this magic transformation in that last year where at night, at that time, we were playing like Quake and other RTSs and such. And then I remember very specifically on Age of Empires 2, in that last year, there was this moment where, and we would all work late at night, we still do, and we're like, at night in the hallways, you would hear the sounds of our own game being played. And it wasn't because people were testing it or they had to. It was because they just were blowing off steam, and that's the way they were doing it, is by playing our own game. We're right on that edge with Wildcard, and I am not willing to ship the game until it is actually our own internal favorite game, which is the highest bar ever, and we're getting there.
This is going to be a loaded question out of nowhere.
Good.
But, more games being released now than ever, right?
Yeah.
You can probably say that for the next few years straight every single month. What are your thoughts on the current state of the gaming industry?
It's rough. It's rough out there. And I think that it's partially due to a little bit of a risk aversion. What's weird, though, because it feels like the game industry is kind of bifurcated. You have these studios, like what we just saw with Claire, that are just coming out of nowhere and releasing a game that suddenly is just so good, and nobody was really anticipating it. And those games are doing really well. Those are like true, projects of passion from the team. And a lot of those, if you would go talk to them, it's a similar story to us. Like, here's a team that's just been like grinding on this game for 7 years, and it's like their passion project. And then on the other side of the industry, you have, sequels, and you have games that are just trying to incrementally improve a certain genre, and are not doing as well, are missing expectations, the publishers will put in hundreds of millions of dollars, and then they have these sky-high expectations, and they have to achieve these insane revenue goals. I don't think that's very sustainable, and I'm glad to see that the other side of the industry is having success, even though it's very hard. It's like, it's not traditional. It's not we'll just go make another extraction shooter like we were talking about earlier. Doing the thing that we're trying to do, and a lot of developers are trying to do, which is push the industry forward, push games forward. It's probably the highest risk, but that's where I think the real silver lining is for the game industry. And we're in kind of that transition right now. So I think that the future is going to be dominated by game developers willing to push the boundaries, working with the content creators and the communities to try to take that risk down a little bit. Because again, if we're willing to take the time like we are, then by the time we do release it eventually, even though we've taken forever and it's spent a lot of money, we already know it's pretty good because the people that we're hoping to play it are already playing it with us in our Discord. We've had a long early access period or a long alpha period. That's the new way.
Yeah, I'm curious who's going to develop on that too, because you have these early access, you have betas and alphas, of course, and those windows might get longer and longer as people are like, hey, you can see our game earlier in the process.
Yes.
Look little rough version of it, but this is what's coming, maybe not next year, but in 2 years, maybe in 3 years, right? So
Yeah.
I think we're seeing more people kind of play with that a little bit. It's going to be fun to see how that develops these next 5 years.
I'm really, really excited about this because I actually honestly think that the communities and content creators who have contributed to the success of games like Wildcard have been underutilized and like under rewarded. Like this is the other part of it, okay? When we work with those communities and those content creators, and then and it's not like Wildcard's going to be for everyone, right? But when we find those true fans that like they're like, Wildcard is my game. Like this is what I've been looking for. This is what I'm waiting for. And then they go on to maybe be content creators, play the game in front of other people. We get the highest quality players from that. Like if I have a choice between spending $1 on like a Facebook ad and getting some random player shows up and maybe they like the game or maybe not, versus I can get a player who discovered the game because, for instance, you were playing it and you were telling people that you loved it. That person who discovered it thanks to you is going to, I just know this statistically, they're going to stick around in the game. They have higher retention, they have higher monetization, whatever. And I think the actual solution to this, and this ties a little bit into the platform that we're building with the streaming platform, is to share the success that those content creators communities bring into the game. So what we're trying to do with Wildcard is not just build a new game that everybody wants to play, but a game that streamers actually can be more successful and content creators can be more successful because the success they drive into the game is shared back with them. That's what we're trying to do.
Can you dive into that?
Yeah.
Into those details at all by chance?
Yes, I can.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so we had this vision from the beginning of Wildcard where it was very simple. We were like, okay, when a streamer streams one of our games, and this was before we even started on Wildcard, we knew this from our other games, we make a lot of money. Like I remember there's this one German streamer. I don't think he'd mind me mentioning his name now. His name is Gronk. He's still a pretty big streamer in Germany. And we had this like Minecraft clone that we were working on many years ago called Creativerse. And I came into the office on a Monday, and we had made like 300 grand that weekend. I was like, what just happened? Because like we were making 10 grand a day at most at that point. So like this giant weekend, all these players showed up. We're like, what's going on? And we found that this guy, Gronk, had done a Let's Play stream and had like 300,000 subs or something. Like it was pretty good size. And drove a tremendous amount of revenue into the game. So I reached out to him and I was like, that was awesome, dude, thank you. And he's like, yeah, I love the game. Like I wanted to show it to my fans. And I'm like, so just tell me, I'm curious, like how much money did you make this weekend? And he's like, yeah, like 3 or 4 grand, it was pretty good. And I'm like, dude, like you drove like $300,000 in revenue to our game. Like there's gotta be a better way to do this or whatever. So of course, like we worked something out with him, but that became this seed for me. I was like, this is broken. If we can just find a way to automatically share the success and the revenue that the content creators and communities are bringing with those content creators, and we have a great game that they want to stream anyway, that could be like the next frontier. So that was part of the vision when we started for Wildcard. And the way we're actually making it happen is by building our own streaming platform, because we went to the Twitches of the world and the Discords and we're like, this is all we want. Very simple. When someone streams Wildcard, and then one of their viewers goes on to play the game, install the game, and maybe like buy some skins or something, we just want to give money back to the streamer. Can we do that? Twitch was like, well, that's hard. Like, we can't, like if you want to do a deal with a one-off streamer, you can do that, of course. And we're like, no, we just want it to automatically happen. And they're like, yeah, we don't do that. We don't support that. And we were working with them and Discord to try to get those features built for years, okay? If Katie was here, my co-CEO, she would go off on this because she's really not happy with how that went. But anyway, that's what led us to being like, we have to build this ourselves. Like, it's kind of like when Valve built Steam. Like, they didn't necessarily want to build Steam. They were game developers, just want to make games. But they had no way to digitally distribute their games, and they got so fed up with that and Microsoft not giving them what they needed that they were like, we're just gonna build it ourselves. That's kind of what happened, and that's why we have Thousands now, because Thousands is a platform where as a content creator, when you stream Wildcard, and any of your viewers go on to buy, install, play Wildcard, you just get paid automatically. And it seems like the simplest thing ever, but anyway, that's what we want to be true. That's what we're building. Maybe it'll be also useful for other games. I don't know, like Steam ended up being like the thing, but for Valve initially it was just for their own games. That's kind of what we're doing with Thousands.
Very interesting monetization model. Just a last few questions for you. When it comes to this 2v2 collectible card action game, are there competitors in this genre? Are there people that you look to for inspiration? And I know we talked about it earlier, like there's not really people doing this exact
There's nothing,
build.
I mean, I don't say this like as the studio CEO, just like trying to pat myself on the back. I want more games like Wildcard because I'm really into this collectible card action game thing, like building a deck and then taking that deck of cards into a really fun action strategy game. That's what I want, right? If there were other games, I would point to them. Probably the closest, like it feels like a MOBA a little bit, but it also feels like an action game. When we come to conventions like this, that's what we hear. Because like these conventions tend to be like two groups of gamers. You've got the League of Legends gamers and you got the Counter-Strike gamers. You can just ask people like, which one are you, right? And we get both into our booth playing the game, and they both love it. They're like, oh, this game must be made for Counter-Strike players. Or they'll say, oh, this game must be made for League players. And we're like, actually, I know you guys hate each other, but it's made for both of you guys. And that's, so I hope that we can create something that is a crossover that way. Probably the other closest game is Smite, maybe. And we hired the lead designer of Smite onto our team. So like, yeah, there's a lot in common there as well. But it just feels different. Like some people say it even feels like Rocket League a little bit because you're in an arena and it has that feeling of like arena combat. So yeah, it's just something new. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, for me personally, I definitely see the Smite aspects, but I'm also a diehard Smite player. Me and 3,000 other people. So last question for you.
Yeah.
When it comes to your game, what would you say is the most defining point or favorite part about Wildcard?
So I think my favorite thing is that it's very easy to play, like to just pick up, like anyone can walk up and pick up a controller and start playing it, but it's like it takes, you feel it could take a while or a lifetime even to master. And this is exactly, again, going back to the Age of Empires days, that was actually our mantra at the studio. Like it sort of developed during Age 1 and then it became the thing for every Age of Empires game. We would just repeat to ourselves, this game should be easy to learn, take a lifetime to master. And my favorite moment now has been, I was playing at a convention a little while ago with my brother, who's part of the company, but he's not full-time. And so I hadn't played Wildcard in a while. And he sat down to play against another new player, and he had a good time. And he was like, it seems like a good game, Paul, but like, it just seems too simple. Like, honestly, like, I just, summon some creatures and whatever. I don't get where the depth is. And I was like, yeah, okay, how about you and I play? And so I sit down and I rolled him. Like I just, he lasted maybe like 30 seconds or something. And it reminded me of the very first time when I joined the Age of Empires team at the end, Age 1. And I'd been playing a little bit and I was like, I'm good. And I got into a multiplayer game with them to like show them that I had been practicing. And I'm like getting to Age 2, I'm like really, I'm doing well. And like this army of elephants and archers comes in. I'm like, I just like took my hands off, like, you guys are cheating. You're just, trolling me, like whatever. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way you could, these games, like Wildcard, I hope, and like Age of Empires, they have this incredibly high skill ceiling. And yet they're so easy to just pick up and play and feel like, oh, I got this. How hard could this be? And then you start to see those strategies emerge and you start to be like, wait, this actually has a lot more depth. So that's my favorite part of Wildcard. It's a game that literally an 8-year-old, and I've had them, can like pick it up and be like, this is awesome. I'm summoning creatures like Pokemon come to life. And yet the hardest core players in our community are like, this is everything. Like I can micromanage this one thing and beat this player with this max strategy. Like, and the fact that those two ends of the spectrum can exist in one game, that's my favorite part.
Easy to learn, a lifetime to master.
Yeah.
We'll end it on that. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thanks, man.
That was awesome.